My presentation is translated into Portuguese as well, and I have prepared it to be like a small book or leaflet that you can use as a guide, and you are free to use it and to distribute it as much as you want. So I will give you a short background, and then I will go into 4 real cases so that you can see what really happens with the EWC during the restructuring. And I usually start, when I talk about EWCs, with the fundamental rights that as citizens in the European Union, we have the right to be informed about matters that concern us and that involves us, and this right can be transferred also into the EWCs and our working life. As we know, the EWC is based on a directive, and these directives are implemented into the national legislations. It is important for all of us not to make assumptions that all companies and cases are the same and treated in the same way, because the implementation of the directive in different countries has been done in different ways. So it's always important to find out about the legislation in the country where the actual case is happening and where the company has its headquarters. Usually the rule is that at least one country must be involved with effects in another country when we have a restructuring case and something is happening. However, in the new directive, we also have the word may have significant impact. So beforehand, it's not necessary to prove that this is the case, which makes life much easier for us, because we can just say that this may have a big impact also for employees in other countries, or that the decision is made in one country, but the effects will be in another country. So then we can make it into a EWC case, not anymore a national case, and then the EWC can discuss this. And then who is informed about what is happening and who is consulted? So we can divide this into 2 major groups. We either have an EWC agreement in a company, and then we follow the procedure that is written in the agreement. Usually it is the working committee or the select committee, as Chantal called it in her presentation, and always at some point it is the entire EWC. Or then in cases where we don't have an agreement, then we follow the legal procedure, and it is the select committee or the working committee, and later at some point we also inform the rest of the EWC. What's important with the information and consultation procedure is that the information is given early enough. And this is one of the most important parts in the latest directive from 2009. And the consultation has to, the information and then the consultation has to happen between the first information and the actual decision of the company. It's very difficult to follow up on this. It requires a lot of work of the EWC delegates. It requires a lot of cooperation with national employee representation bodies. Sometimes we have rumors, sometimes we have some kind of other information, but we need to listen to all that so that we know that the consultation part has been happening before the company has made the final decisions. And actually, even in the agreements, we cannot really agree on anything less than this standard, because this is what is written in the directive and it has to be followed. Here I also have the remark that the information and consultation process must not be split into smaller national parts. It happens sometimes. The company may say that now we have something going on in one country, and after negotiations have been concluded in that country, then they come up with something similar in another country, and this goes on, and then our colleagues in the different countries, they don't really know what is happening. One case is the British Airways, where the employee representatives early enough found out that something like this is happening, and they brought it up, and to make it short, they actually took the management to court in the case to prove that the management could not split the restructuring into national issues. The directive also says that the company's business may not suffer from the information and consultation procedure, and this is absolutely correct. However, it is in the hands of the company to decide how early they start with the process. So if the company at some point says that now we have to hurry and we don't have time, they actually can blame only themselves, because they have the choice to start it earlier. And there are no requirements on how long the process will take. So enough time should be reserved for this, so that we can do both the information part and the consultation part well enough. Not so that we have 15 minutes for the information, and half an hour later we should be able to give our opinion, that is the consultation part, but it's not, this is not according to the standards of neither the directive or any legislation. About the reaction of the EWC, it's very important that it is a group. The EWC is one group that will process the information, and it will come out with one opinion. So we cannot have a situation where our colleagues in the EWC have different answers and different opinions. Then we are making things bad for ourselves. And it's also important to have the appropriate management level involved. So many times it's so that it is the HR that is working with the EWC, and then when the EWC delegates have some questions, the HR is saying that, well, we don't know anything about the business, so we can't answer this. That's not correct. It's the responsibility of the management to make sure they have those peoples attending the discussion that really both have the knowledge and also have the power to tell about things. And again, we have to note about the different legislations, because in some restructuring cases we can have different situations. In some countries, the EWC representatives can be informed before anyone else is informed. This goes, for example, for Finland, where I come from. And in some countries, the local representatives cannot be informed later. So that's, for example, for Austria. So it means that the EWC must either be informed before anyone else, or at least at the same time, but never later than the national bodies. If the national bodies have already been informed, there actually is no room for the EWC anymore to get any kind of consultation. They have lost that opportunity. And it's also a continuous process. So even after the information and the consultation part, which may include several different sessions, we have the follow-up, we have the feedback inside the EWC from the colleagues, we need the feedback from the national employee representatives to hear what has happened at the national level, the results and the impacts. And also we have discussions with the management after this information and consultation initial process. And of course we always should have a revision and refining of the process itself. So every time we should sit down and evaluate the best practice, the problems, the difficulties, but also the success we had, so that the next time we can make this in a better way. There is always some room for improvement. And I will now give you some different cases. Usually when we talk about restructuring, it can be that we are reorganizing the company. It can be that companies are merging. So two or more companies are forming one. Or maybe we have a case where a company is buying or selling business unit parts. And also remember that restructuring is not just about losing employees, it's also about an increase in employee numbers. Even that should be informed and consulted with the EWC. So, from my 4 examples, this is the first one, and this is according to the 2009 directive. And it's very, very recent actually, from this spring. And I apologize that I cannot give you the name of the company in this case. The company is facing a loss of a major client. They had a business, they had earlier achieved a client, a huge client, and then they understood that this client wants to change supplier. And if they lose the client, it might lead to closures in one of the countries where the company is working. And not only will they have to close down or lose employees in that country, but it will also have an impact on the neighboring country. So actually 2 countries will be involved in this. The employees in the countries got in touch with the EWC delegates after they heard rumors in their country that something like this might happen. They summarized the situation, and together they prepared with the working committee of the EWC a set of questions that they need to ask from the management. And the local level employee representatives, they have already received some answers on the local level, but they still have not the official information from the group management. So the working committee distributed the questions not only inside the working committee, but also in the entire EWC. They refined the questions, they wanted to go straight to the point. And then they met with the management, and this is the information part, and they requested a possibility for a consultation as well, so that they could both refine and clarify the questions and see what they could do on the national level. And the company agreed to this, so at the end we could involve both national level with the employee representatives, and we could involve the European level with the EWC working committee and the management, and the issue was dealt. So all these employee representatives received the full information about what is going to happen, what are the reasons behind that, and also they had the possibility to have a discussion with the management, what would happen to the employees in both of these countries that were involved. Then I have, does anyone have any questions or any comments? There is that is in the back.
Okay, Daniel, I'm going to change to Portuguese, okay? Ok, eu sou o representante português da Nokia. Este caso que o Daniel apresentou aqui tem diretamente a ver com a Nokia. O Daniel não pode mencionar, mas eu não tenho essa restrição. Isto tem a ver com o projeto, mais concretamente em Espanha, executado não só a partir de Espanha, mas também de Portugal. E assim começaram os rumores que o projeto ia terminar. Nós em Portugal, tendo uma boa comunicação com a direção dos recursos humanos, começámos a trabalhar no pior cenário, ou seja, o fim do projeto, dado que iria afetar, neste caso, no nosso caso em Portugal, portanto, isso permitiu-nos, dado que temos um centro internacional em Portugal de operações, permitiu-nos trabalhar em licitação e alocar todas essas pessoas a outros projetos. Infelizmente, em Espanha, a situação foi diferente. Estamos a falar em Espanha de 120 pessoas a serem afetadas e, portanto, neste momento há uma troca de, digamos, de informação, há uma comunicação entre o EWC da Nokia e o board da Nokia no sentido de mitigar este problema que temos em Espanha. Há um outro projeto, a Nokia ganhou um outro projeto em Espanha, com um outro cliente, e portanto está-se a trabalhar no sentido de tentar alocar o máximo possível de pessoas a esse projeto. Existe na Nokia um mercado interno, que nós chamamos de Internal Job Market, mas claro está que, inclusive em Portugal, as posições em aberto, mas claro está que é difícil para pessoas que vivem em Espanha, têm a sua família em Espanha, etc., têm a sua vida em Espanha, é difícil moverem agora a sua vida para Portugal com ela. Portanto, neste momento, o que está a fazer é tentar alocar essas pessoas a um outro projeto ou um outro cliente. Já agora, queria só referir, peço desculpa se o já dizia, só referir que estamos a falar de um cliente multinacional sediado na Europa e que a Nokia perde o projeto para uma outra multinacional, estamos a falar do projeto, que esse operador sediado na Europa, portanto, fez o outsourcing deste projeto já há uns anos, e estamos a falar agora para perder o projeto para uma outra multinacional sediada na Europa. Portanto, eu acho que, e isto tem a ver não só, a perda do projeto não tem a ver com uma questão de desempenho, mas apenas com uma questão financeira. Portanto, eu acho que aqui há também ver a nível europeu a multinacional para a qual perdemos o projeto vai deslocar a operação do projeto para um outro país, também na Europa e membro da União Europeia. Portanto, estamos a falar de empresas sediadas na União Europeia, com sede da União Europeia e a disponibilização para dentro da União Europeia. Portanto, penso que aqui, a nível europeu, acho que deve haver aqui esta situação, deve ser vista no sentido de calcular os empregos das pessoas. Porque quando estamos a falar de perda de projeto para um outro país, fora da União Europeia, para outro continente, aí talvez as situações sejam mais complicadas. Agora, neste caso, estamos a falar exclusivamente de empresas sediadas e de deslocalização dentro.
Obrigado pelo complemento e pelo esclarecimento também. O Daniel vai continuar com a sua intervenção.
Thank you for filling up with the task that I really couldn't do myself. You know, we have strict rules about this. So, I will go to my next case. This is also according to the 2009 directive. I have been personally involved in this one, so I'm talking about personal experience. And we had, and this is still ongoing, so this is very fresh, but we had with one company last autumn the meeting of the EWC. I was invited as both an expert and a speaker for the EWC meeting, and I was invited to stay during the EWC meeting itself so that I could make comments about the process and the cooperation between the EWC and the management. And my feeling was that they had a good professional relationship between all the people involved. However, there was some kind of distance between the employee representatives and the management representatives, and on the last day we had the main director of the company attending the meeting, and on the last day, just like we were sitting here at this table now, and the European HR manager were talking about the difficult situation this company that is actually a market leader in its field, how difficult it is. They don't have enough cash, they have difficulties paying the salaries, the suppliers, and then suddenly the CEO, he just switched off the microphone of the HR manager, and then he put on his microphone and he said that he will tell everything. And he really did that. He spoke for an hour without being interrupted by anyone. He explained that the company is actually fighting to survive, and that they do have in one of the European countries 3 different factories, and they need to close completely one of these. And I knew from the days before that our colleagues from that country were actually prepared to ask for solidarity and ask for a strike if necessary, so that that company, the factory, could be kept open. But after this information that we received from the CEO, and who explained how he had been talking both to the government of the country and the local regional government, and for the past 4 years tried to keep the factory open at any possible legal way, now just couldn't do it anymore because the local law said that it can be done only for 4 years. The company did not have money anymore for that, and the discussion after that was that how should they proceed, what would be done in the future, so that the impact on the employees would be as little, as small as possible, and they could start the cost saving and the other restructuring things necessary so that the company could survive. At the end, the outcome was that this one factory would be closed. That's the information I have. The EWC asked that even if this happens, at least there would be proper negotiations with the employees affected, so that they could be compensated as well as possible, and also that whatever actions are made, they would be actions that would in the long run benefit the company in such a way that as many of the workplaces could be saved as possible. And this process is going on. I just received this week some information about what is happening and what is being done. And I find it to be a good example of how even in really difficult cases, when the management understands that there is a value, it's a tool for the management, like Chantal said in her presentation, to talk with the employee representatives. They can just get more out of the process. They will have the confidence of the employees that whatever they are doing is really something that is absolutely necessary. It's not just because somebody wants to get more money from the shares or something like that, but it's really about making something for the company and making sure it will survive. And I personally appreciate the openness. I have followed the emails between the EWC chairman and the management, top management, European HR director and the CEO, and I can see that almost all the questions that have been asked have also received answers. So this was my example 2 about it's a very difficult case, and without cooperation I'm sure that the company will fail, but now I'm pretty positive that they will find a way out of this difficult situation. Then I have a 3rd case. Here I can tell you the name. This is the Nokia Bochum case in 2008, and it is actually a case with a company that made its EWC agreement before the first directive from 1994 became valid, and it was a difficult situation because the legislation would not fully cover this case. The case itself was that Nokia decided to close one of its factories, a phone producing factory in Germany, in the city of Bochum, and some more than 5,000 employees were affected. Approximately half of them were union members in one of the big unions, IG Metall, and IG Metall was a very active player here, and the other half of the employees affected were from different kind of manpower companies that were not directly hired by Nokia. And we also learned through different sources and rumors that Nokia had been building and preparing to open a plant in Romania. So our immediate thought was that they are transferring production from Germany to Romania. The company would at no point still hasn't admitted that this is an EWC case. They claim still that it is a case about one country with effects only in Germany and nowhere else. However, they agreed to start an immediate process. At the time, in 2008, February, we were invited by the EMF to Brussels, where we could have a meeting with the countries involved and with the select committees of the select committee members of Nokia. We had very strong support all the way up to the General Secretary of the EMF, and I even remember a very large press conference at the EMF premises. So we had a very large coverage also in the news and in the media with this case. It probably helped our cause a lot. I did go myself with the EWC chairman and some managers from Nokia to Romania also to see the Romania factory. I can tell you that they had exactly the same machines for producing telephones that they had in Germany and other phone producing companies. It was very difficult for us to understand why the company could not admit that it is really an EWC European level case. However, since the company agreed to talk with us And I participated in some of these talks, but some were on such a high level that it was only the EWC chairman and the really top management, the CEO and the next man from him, who would do some of the talking, and the contents have never leaked out what they spoke of. But at that time, the compensations paid to the people who were directly employed by Nokia were about the highest so far paid in such an industrial restructuring case. And it is an example both of how we can have a good cooperation and how we can use the power of our European level federations, in this case the EMF. I'm sure that without that support we would not have come so far as we did. It is also an example of what happens when we have different countries put against each other, in this case Germany and Romania. And believe me, it is really difficult to be just professional and calm when you know that in one country you are losing workplaces and the other country you are gaining, and we are talking about thousands of people. So it's really not possible for somebody to say that stop, that we don't want to have 2,000 workplaces in our country just because our colleagues in another country will lose the job. So it's like being in a circus and trying to balance on the rope and not fall down but still achieve something. I still sometimes wake up with this case. It had a huge impact. We all feel sorry about all the jobs that were lost. We feel that, and I have spoken with the EWC members since I'm the coordinator of Nokia, so at least the people got compensations, and also Nokia, part of what they did was not just money, but they also cooperated with agencies that would help the people in Germany who would not be able to continue with Nokia to find new jobs. So I believe that a lot was done, and we did at least everything that we could in this case. Would you like to ask something about this case? I would be happy to answer. No? Okay, then we go to my last case, case number 4. And this is a case according to the 94 directive, and this actually happened before the latest directive came into force. And this is interesting because here in this case, what happened was that in one company, one factory, the new CEO, he started employing new people, hiring new people. And he had before that some 200 people in the factory, and in a very short time, just a few weeks if I recall correctly, he employed some 60, 70 new people. They didn't all have anything to do, they were just walking back and forth in the factory. And the local shop steward, who was also the chairman of the EWC, he wanted to meet with the CEO to understand what is the reason behind this, because the factory cannot support all these people. There is not work for them, there is no money for the salaries. The CEO, he wouldn't answer. So the EWC chairman, he just bought himself a ticket and he went to Finland, where the main office is, and he met with the vice president of the company. He explained this case, and he said that if they don't do something, they will have to close down the full entire factory. And the vice president said that he didn't know anything about this. So, to make it short, the CEO in that country was fired. He had immediately to leave the company and the factory. The 70 people who had been recently hired, unfortunately they had to leave as well, but the factory was saved and it's still operating today. I met with both the vice president and the chairman just 3 weeks ago in Finland, and they are operating and doing normal. Can't say these days that they are doing fine, but they are doing normal. So this is an example where even when it is just one country involved with absolutely no effect on anyone else, but still the EWC can bring the matter up to the group level, in this case the vice president, and explain what is happening. And as you can see, they were able to save one complete factory. This was my last example, and I will end here. I will be here for the rest of the day, so you're welcome to come and talk with me. Thank you.